The Niners faced Seattle last week. It didn't go so well. Now they got to go to Seattle, and as we all know, the Niners are the only team in the NFC with the short week of rest. They're probably not going to have a full practice. Seattle is rested. How can the Niners pull off this upset?
Okay, let's be realistic about this. I think the Seahawks are a better team. I do.
Yeah.
I plus they'll be home on that very fast surface where it's very gloomy for the 49ers to play there. And they just kicked the Niners' ass. So the Niners did beat them earlier in the season on the first game, but they got ruined. So part of me says it's going to be a repeat. But on the other hand, there's this stuff I don't understand about the 49ers.
Yeah.
Rising to the occasion. So you use the phrase in the lead-in, a live dog, and I want to explain where that comes from for us. For years, I would always cover the big fights in Las Vegas, and my best friend there is Kenny Epstein, who now owns the El Cortez Hotel and Casino. And he knows all about gambling. And sometimes if there was a fight, he would call me if he wanted to bet. And he would say, Lowell, what do you think of the underdog? Is he a live dog? Meaning, is he an underdog who has a shot? Because if Kenny would bet on him, he'd get better odds. To me, the Niners are a live dog. They shouldn't win this game, but they might very well win this game. One, because they have the X factor, whatever that is. And because right now, Kyle and Purdy and Salah are at their best. They're peaking right now. And so I give them a real strong chance. I think they're a live dog, but I think they're a dog. What about you?
I think they're a dog. I think the Seahawks might be the most complete team in the league, and the Niners aren't, obviously. But I think it should be a closer game. I think that the fact that Kittle isn't playing may not necessarily hurt the 49ers. He's never been a big playoff performer. He's a great player, but not having him out there could bring out the best in Kyle Shanahan like it did in this game. He had to be so creative to move the ball, and he was. And so now there's going to be all kind of stuff that he's going to do that he hasn't shown yet, and the Seahawks won't be prepared for. Also, the fact that the Seahawks controlled the game so handily they only won by 10, but they moved the ball at will, and the Niners couldn't do anything on offense. It's almost like they can't make adjustments because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You kind of have their number. Maybe you feel like you just gotta do what works. Meanwhile, the Niners are going to do different things because what they did last 2 weeks ago didn't work. So with Robert Saleh, we talked about it. His game plan, I hated it. You just let him run on you. I don't think he's going to do that again. I think he would probably have a different approach to stopping that offense, and the Seahawks haven't seen it yet, and they'll have to adjust to that mid-game, and that might give the Niners enough of an advantage to – I wouldn't expect them to win the game by much. If they beat the Seahawks, it's going to be Purdy on a drive at the very end. That close of a game. But it's not like the Seahawks scored a lot of points in the last. If they're going to mess around and score 13 points, and it'll be a game.
I'll mention,
and that's what they've scored against the Niners twice this year: 13 the first game and 13 the second game.
Two names I'll mention: Tonjes, because Purdy won't play, this kid will play, and Iggy's a really good receiver.
Yeah, and he's healthy.
I'm sorry, because Kittle won't play. He's a really good receiver, and the other is Sam Darnold. And here's what I'm saying might happen. I'm not predicting it, but I think this would be on Salah's mind to rattle Darnold because he's a rattler.
Oh, you can rattle him.
He's a rattler.
Yeah. Here's the problem with Darnold, and I think this is why I think this matchup's so interesting. The Niners are not as good as the Seahawks, but the Niners have a better quarterback, and that's a big deal in football. And the thing with Darnold is you don't trust him, and he's going to make the mistake that loses the game. But the Niners don't have a defense that intercepts lots of passes. Lenore's a playmaker, but really no one else in their secondary is a guy that you have to worry about intercepting passes. Not Renardo Green, not Upton Stout, not the safeties. So his biggest weakness isn't necessarily something the Niners can exploit. In 2 games against the Niners this year, Darnold has not thrown an interception. He also hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. He's done a bunch of nothing. Whereas Purdy has thrown 3 picks in 2 games against the Seahawks. So you think of Darnold being the guy you got to worry about, but at least in this matchup, it's Purdy because Purdy's going against a great defense and Darnold's going up against a defense with no pass rush and no playmakers and, smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, yeah. Do
Yeah.
you, I said that they're a live dog and they have an underdog's chance. Do you see them having a chance to win the game? And if they're going to win it, the Niners, how would they do it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, they almost won 2 weeks ago despite getting dominated because as well as Seattle played when they got to the red zone, they weren't good. I mean, Darnold took a sack on 1st and goal from the 1 and lost 11 yards. He had a running back open in the end zone, didn't throw it to him. I mean, he's kind of a disaster. He has a good arm and he can see the field a little bit. He can make some nice plays, but he's not a playmaker like Purdy. And uh, I feel like what he's trying to do is not mess up. You can feel it, right? He knows
Yeah.
his reputation. He knows if he is the reason they lose, they could get rid of him. And he's just trying not to be the reason they lose, which is like you're going to let the Niners hang around. You're going to let a lot of teams hang around if you're playing quarterback like that in the NFL, especially against playoff teams. And you let the Niners hang around just a week ago.
I think one thing Salah has to adjust is the time of possession. He
Yeah.
allowed Seattle to have the ball too long, and he hurt his own offense by letting Seattle have the ball too long. He has to do something to curtail that.
Yes. I don't think what he did in that game was conservative to the max. It's 3rd and 3. I don't care. I just don't want to give a big play. I'm just going to tighten up when we get to the red zone. I'm just pretty much conceding the red zone, but I want you to take the long way there. All right, well, you're just going to let them chew up all the clock. And you gave up 13 points, but you're off into the ball for 20 minutes. Now, the offense has to do something with the ball. They can't go 2 for 9 on 3rd down against this defense. The problem with this defense is it is better than Philly's defense. Philly's defense is good. They have that excellent cornerback who picked off Purdy twice, and they have Cooper DeJean, who's also excellent. That's 2 good DBs. The Seahawks have like 6 good DBs. Their pass rush, you saw it 2 weeks ago. It was way better than Philly's pass rush. And they're going to be at home with the crowd noise and the turf and the rest. It's going to be hard. Doesn't mean the Niners can't do it, but like if Philly's a 2nd-tier team, I think Seattle is clearly a top-tier team. And I don't think the Niners have beaten – well, they did beat Seattle. They did beat the Rams. It's been a while. It would be an impressive win considering all the injuries they've suffered since then.
Iggy, I imagine that Salah is going to talk to the media on Wednesday.
Correct.
It's a different kind of week. Tomorrow is Shanahan, Wednesday is Salah. Would it be appropriate to ask him, how do you get Seattle's offense off the field quicker? And are you thinking about it and addressing that? Would that
I
be
like that.
appropriate to ask him that?
That's a great question. I think that's the question. I don't know if they'll answer this question, but this is kind of an interesting issue. So they only have 6 days of rest. You wrote a Substack about it. Check out my dad's Substack. He wrote a great Substack explaining why the Niners kind of got screwed over. Josh Dubow feels like they didn't, and like it's kind of the kind of thing that comes around, goes around. The Niners have benefited from it in the past, but they're kind of getting screwed this week. They're the only team that has to deal with this in the NFC. We saw what this did to the Niners. Like last time they faced the Seahawks, they had 6 days of rest. And not only do they have to do 2 days of game planning and prep in one day, but the Niners make the choice of not having a full practice. They'll do walkthroughs, but they think it's better to let your players recover as much as possible than to have that practice on a short week. And I mean, I'm not an expert. I don't know if that's the right or wrong way to go about it. It just felt like they were utterly unprepared in the last and missing tackles. Like not just a bad game plan, but unprepared for the physicality of the game. And I wonder if it's going to look like that again because of this freak scenario.
Iggy, you're saying they're not going to have a practice all week?
Nope. I mean, maybe. Hey, Maybe they'll do something differently this week because it's the playoffs and so much is on the line. But they had a 6-day week before the Bears game, didn't have a full practice. Had a 6-day week before the Seahawks game the following week, didn't have a full practice. And afterward, when they came back and preparing for the Eagles, they were talking like, man, this was our first actual practice in 2 weeks. We were rusty. We needed this. So now I wonder what they do.
I do want to point out what we're talking about is I think it's unfair to the 49ers. The Bears and Rams played on Saturday. So if they got the next Saturday's game, that would have given them a full week of regular weeks, a regular week of practice and rest. The Niners played on a Sunday and they get the Saturday game. So they're getting screwed. And Seattle will have had 2 weeks off. So the Niners are the only team that's suffering. I think they should have put Seattle Niners Sunday. I don't know what the league was thinking, but I don't think it's fair. And again, I'm not rooting for the Niners, but I'm rooting for fairness.
That's interesting. It's you make a good point. I just don't think that the NFL has it in for the Niners. In fact, I
No.
think the NFL will probably be pretty happy if the Niners won this game because I think Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan are a much bigger draw than Sam Darnold and Mike McDonald. And I wonder if it'll even out. Like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist whatsoever, but remember last year, people were just losing their minds about the Chiefs every week. Like, no one ever calls penalties on this team. Were you aware of that last year? It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
That the NFL was propping them up and they're not that good. And anyway, they stopped doing that this year if they were doing it and they fell apart. One penalty for the Niners? I'm not saying that the league is in the bag for the Niners, but the idea that the league would screw the Niners over just doesn't make any sense to me. They're the league darlings. If they got screwed over with the short week, they'll get a favorable whistle. They'll work it out for them.
I don't know that they'll get a favorable whistle, and I don't think it's a conspiracy. I just think someone was not prudent. That it's not fair, and they could have easily flipped the games. But Iggy, I'm not accusing anybody of anything.
I'm not accusing
neither.
either.
Nor am I saying there's going to be a makeup call in the game. I like to feel that all of this is on the level.
I like to feel that too. The league does have a star power problem. You saw it at the end of this game tonight. They kept making Aaron Rodgers seem more important than he was. Like, watch Aaron Rodgers trip and fall in the pocket. No Lamar Jackson, no Aaron Rodgers, no Patrick Mahomes. They need some new quarterback stars, and it's Purdy. It's about to be Purdy if he wins a couple more games. It's good for the league. It's not Darnold. I'll tell you that. Was there anything else we want to talk? Oh, the other thing, the fact that they don't have Kittle for this game, you brought it up a minute ago. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for the Niners. Tonjes is good, and it'll bring out Kyle's creative side. It'll get him away from being locked into what he always does. So gives him a chance. And Trent Williams is going to – he did not play 2 weeks ago. He's kind of important.
Right. That's a big difference. Now, Iggy, let me ask.
Eric Kendricks, all of a sudden, he's like a central figure. And Marquise Siegel. He wasn't playing. Jair Brown was playing. Siegel's back. He looks pretty good. So it's not the same team they had 2 weeks ago.
I got another thing. You could see I wish I were in this locker room. So I got another thing for you to do. If you want, when you go in there at lunchtime tomorrow, whatever days, and if Kendricks is there, I want you to ask him what he was doing 5 weeks ago.
I like that.
What were you doing? What would you be doing on a typical Wednesday 5 weeks ago?
Yeah. Great question. Love that.
Okay.